everyone, welcome to Living Let Dine. I'm Frank Black, and today we're going to learn how to make one of my favorite recipes, smoked pulled pork. Now, I've spent some time this year working with some great barbecue experts to really up my barbecue game, and I thought I'd take those lessons and bring them here to my channel and share them with you. Now, as I said, this year I had the opportunity to spend some time in Owensboro, Kentucky. Owensboro is a small town of about 60,000 people, but every year its population more than doubles with the arrival of the International Barbecue Festival. Teams from all over the country will be serving up some of the best smoked meats you will ever find anywhere. Now, in addition to being the home of the barbecue festival, it's also considered one of the best places to stop for smoked meats, namely because of its home to the world-famous places like the Old Hickory Restaurant, which have been cooking some of the best barbecue in the country for over 100 years. Now, there are a couple of famous places here in Owensboro, Kentucky, but if you ask the locals, they'll all pretty much tell you that Old Hickory is the place to go for barbecue. People come from all over the country to visit here and get some of the smoked meats, and they serve up a great selection, whether it be in their restaurant or here in their deli counter where you can get it to go. They also serve up some of the sauces that we'll be showing you how to make today. They make their own barbecue sauce. You can buy some of their dip. But in my opinion, if you want the real thing, I mean really good, slow-cooked, get up early in the morning, open hickory pit, closed barrel smoker-style barbecue, you're going to want to go to one of the church picnics. Now, just about every Sunday here in Owensboro during the summer, you can find yourself a church picnic, and they'll be smoking up meats of all types. They also have these huge hickory pits where they do hundreds of chickens. It's really great stuff. And this year I had the chance to spend some time with the Lord's cooking team from Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church. They won second in the International Barbecue Festival this year. I was happy to be able to help them with that. My family and I worked with them on that festival, and it was a really great time. Learned a lot. There's some really great people there. Guys like Ed Laughley and Thomas Veach have helped them win countless awards, grand champions, first place, second place. They do a great job smoking meats of all types, and they're just a bunch of great people. In addition, my buddy Joe Hare here taught me about a new thing that I learned. Is a stew called burgoo. It's something indicative to Daviess County. They do it their own way, and it's kind of like a hunter stew. It has chicken and mutton and beef in it, lots of vegetables and spices, and people line up. I mean, they line up for blocks. Here you'll see my wife and my daughter had trouble keeping up serving the pork sandwiches, and they served hundreds and hundreds of pounds of pork, just countless gallons of burgoo, and they sold out of everything they cooked that day. You could see the line goes all the way down the block. It's really amazing to see, and if you get a chance, you need to stop by the International Barbecue Festival and check it out, because it's something definitely to see. Now, heading on back to our own smoker here, I'll show you the final product of today's lesson, some great pulled pork. Now, I'm doing this on a Traeger because a lot of people don't have access to hardwoods and big barrel smokers, but Traegers are pretty popular throughout the country, and I really like the way Traeger cooks because it doesn't leave a big black exterior. Now, there are some basic ingredients to good barbecue. And this is kind of a multicultural barbecue. A lot of places around the South I took notes from and kind of combined them all. You'll see we got a basic Boston butter pork shoulder will work, a type of slather. I use a dry rub called a Carolina dry rub. There are plenty of dry rubs out there. There's an injection sauce for thicker cuts of meat. You're going to want an injection, a mop sauce, and then a finishing dip, which we'll explain here in a second. Now, as I said, there's a lot of rubs you can get, a lot of recipes for rubs. This is my recipe for a big South Carolina dry rub. It's basically brown sugar, paprika based. It's really great. It's not too spicy, not too sweet. Pretty much a perfect rub if you ask me. Now, in addition, here we got an injection. Now, as I said, any thicker cut of meat, whether it be mutton or pork shoulders or anything that's real thick, you want to get some flavor and some moisture down deep into the meat, so you're going to want to inject it, and this is my Apple City injection. And then something I picked up when I was in Owensboro was a good Big South mop sauce. I've seen a couple of different ways to spray or add moisture to the exterior of the meat, but here in Kentucky and a lot of places around the South, they use what's called a mop sauce, and I really think it works great. Now, one of the things they do here in Daviess County and at Our Lady of Lourdes is they finish their pork with what's called a Kentucky black dip. This is a nice finishing dip that they put on right before the meat is done cooking, about an hour before, so it doesn't burn. But it really adds some great flavor to the meat. And it's mostly comprised of barbecue sauce, which I'll provide a link to my homemade barbecue sauce. I'm going to shoot that video here, and I'll send that out to you guys. But you use barbecue sauce and Worcestershire sauce and a few other ingredients to create what's called a Kentucky black dip. And here I'll show you the Kentucky black dip I used here. And here are the basic ingredients for a good Kentucky black dip. Now, it seems like there's a lot of Worcestershire sauce in this recipe, but really you can't taste any Worcestershire sauce at the end. It's really great. I've tried this a few times just to make sure I'm giving you the best I got, and this is certainly the best that I've had. Now we're going to start off by trimming the fat off of our meat. Now a lot of barbecue cooks will tell you to leave that fat cap on, but if it's real thick and it's got some leathery parts to it, you don't want that on your meat. We'll leave enough fat to let it kind of render down, but you don't want a huge fat cap because then you kind of prevent your spices and all your dip and everything from getting in there. So we'll trim up the big giant pieces of fat, and we'll leave just a little layer of some fat just to I guess base, they say. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply a mustard slather. Now, of course, there are recipes for mustard slather, but I found just good old French's mustard or Berman's mustard works just fine. I don't do anything but mustard, and it really helps the spices adhere when we add the dry rub. And you'll see my wife has helped me here because we want a clean set of hands when we're applying the mustard and we're applying the rub. So it's really good to have someone to help you out. We're going to coat this meat on all sides. And then my wife, with her dry hands, is going to help me apply this rub. She's going to sprinkle it over the top so she doesn't contaminate the rest of our rub. And we're going to sprinkle about half of our rub on the pork butt here. And you see I'm not really rubbing it in. I'm more patting it in just to kind of help it adhere. Showing my wife where the blank spots are. And I'm just going to turn it. We're going to make sure we coat all sides. Now, as I said, we're going to use about half of our rub, and then we're going to set it in the fridge for a while, and then when we take it out, we'll inject it, and then we'll add some more rub to kind of create a nice crust on it. Again, we're not really rubbing it in, more than patting it in, making kind of a crust, helping it soak up some of that mustard, and the mustard helps it adhere really well. We're going to get a real good coating on here and save the other half to apply just before we put it on the smoker. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. We're going to refrigerate it for 8 to 12 hours. I'm doing this in the afternoon prior to the night that I'm going to cook. So I'm going to put it in the fridge, and that little bit of meat tenderizer in the rub will help it kind of soak right into the meat there. And help kind of promote that red ring we're looking for. So here's our injection. Put it in a jar, and I kind of shake it up to mix it up. I'm going to pull it into a syringe. This is just a meat syringe. You can find them at barbecue places. And then just about 9 to 12 places around in the meat in the thick parts. We're just going to kind of give it a little injection until the meat kind of puffs up. You'll see I have my mop sauce sitting over there to the side, and the rest of my dry rub in that bowl. I'm going to pour any remaining injection into that mop sauce, and then when I'm done, I'm going to add a layer of that rub just to kind of seal it up. Now it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm planning on serving around 4 or 5 the next evening, so we're going to go ahead and start around 3 a.m. and here's a list of smoking temperatures for you. Now, I like hickory and oak and apple and cherry. Those are my favorite woods, and I smoke right on 200 to 225. And the timing varies on the size of the meat and your smoker. So we go by temperature. You can use a probe. I don't use a probe anymore. I've been doing it for so long I don't need to. But you can use a probe. You're looking for about 195 for pull. And you're going to smoke it for 3 hours in the beginning. You're not going to touch it. You're not going to open it. You're not going to mop it. But smoke it for 3 hours. This helps it create a crust. And you'll see here after about 2 hours, a nice crust is starting to form. I said I'll wait 3 hours before I mop it. And that crust will help seal in the juices. Here you see, after about 3 hours, I'm going to mop it, and then I'm going to mop it once an hour after this. Now, when I say mop it, that doesn't mean put the mop down on it, because you're going to wash off all them spices. So you see, I'm using the mop to drizzle. Now, maybe on like chicken, where I don't put a rub on initially, I'll mop straight onto the meat. But for pork shoulder, when I have a big crust on there and I don't want to disturb that crust, I'm going to just let that mop drizzle that over the top. And what I'll do is, as that evaporates, it'll leave behind traces of the flavors of the mop sauce in that crust. And the heat and the moisture will help draw it into the meat. And you'll see the red ring when we get done here. It draws it in really good. So once again, every hour, just about on the hour. Come back, add another layer of mop sauce. Now it can take anywhere from 12 to 14 hours to get this done. Now, about an hour before, when you're just about to reach your temperature, you're going to want to take that out. You'll see it's not falling apart in my hands yet, so it hasn't reached that pull temperature. And just give it a good dip in that Kentucky black dip. Now, I used to not use a black dip, never even heard of one until I came to Kentucky. But I tell you, this takes that meat to another level. I'm talking competition level. And I stick it into a pan. Now, some people would debate that, but I've cooked it most of the way outside of a pan, not wrapped, not anything. But the last hour or so, I'll stick it in that pan so I can collect some of that juice and that mop sauce. Helps season my meat when I pull it. And you'll see it just looks amazing. I mean, it is incredible tasting. It's got a nice crust on it. It's just some of the best pork that I've ever had. And I got to thank all the people that helped me learn this recipe. And I hope you guys really like it. Okay, a couple more steps here. Now when we're done and reach that temperature that you want, you're going to want to go ahead and tent that pan with a lid. That's another reason I use that pan, because it makes removing them easier, and letting them rest in that pan really helps. You don't want to rest it for 20 to 30 minutes. That sounds like a lot, but it'll still be steaming hot. You want to rest the meat so that the juices get to distribute themselves evenly throughout the meat. So we're going to rest that for 20 to 30 minutes to allow the juices to redistribute. And while they're redistributing, they will really move that flavor around in the meat. So we'll go ahead and get on our barbecue gloves here because it's kind of hot. I'm just going to remove this, bring it inside and set it on the counter and give it 20 to 30 minutes. This one needs a little bit longer, so we'll set it in the center, close it back up, still get this one resting. Now after it's rested about 20 to 30 minutes, we're going to pull off our cover. As you can tell, it's still steaming hot. You know, and what we're looking for here, we're going to go ahead and move it to a pan to chop it with. And what we're looking for, you see it's kind of falling off the bone in the bottom. We're looking for it to have some pull. We don't want it to just fall apart like mush. That's overcooked. You want a little bit of pull to it. You want to be able to pull it apart, but you don't want it to just fall apart and be mushy. You'll see we got a great red ring. That tells us we did our job. You see the meat just kind of pulls apart, but it still has a little pull to it. And that's just perfectly cooked meat. So now what we'll do is we're going to take that tray that's got some of those drippings and some of that dip in it, kind of pour it over the top. It kind of adds kind of a subtle flavor to it. You still really taste the meat because it's mostly drippings, but it's really great this way. Now, of course, you see I have a bowl over there with some of my dip still in it. A lot of places in Kentucky will add more dip to it. I don't really add more dip. I like the flavor of the meat to stand on its own. You can serve this on a plate right now and it'd be great. You don't need a bun, you don't need anything, you don't need no sauce. You can put this on a plate with some potatoes and serve it right now. But I was raised in the South where, you know, like I said, this meat could stand on this bun all on its own. But my stepfather is from Jackson, Mississippi, and he likes his sandwiches Alabama style, which kind of adds a little character to the sandwich there. And what it is we'll put some pork on a bun, throw over that homemade barbecue sauce. Here's some homemade coleslaw, and I'll provide a link to my wife's homemade coleslaw. A couple dill pickles. And that's how you serve up a barbecue sandwich Alabama style. And there you have it, folks. Really great smoked pulled pork barbecue. I know your friends will like it. Really, I serve it to my family all the time, and my family's pretty good judges of barbecue. Here you see the sandwich Alabama style. I hope you like it. I know my family does. For more recipes and tips, visit liveandletdine.com. Thanks for watching.